Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. It's an imaginary anthology inspired by Sayaka Murata's incredible novel, Convenience Store Woman. Now, if you've read the book, you already know it's this brilliant, razor-sharp look at modern life choices, following a protagonist who completely throws societal expectations out the window. But what we're looking at today takes those exact same core themes and drops them right into the laps of 5 modern Americans. We're going to take a really close look at commitment, at freedom, and the life paths we deliberately choose or sometimes, completely refuse to take. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder if the quote-unquote normal life you're chasing, or maybe the one you're actively running away from, is actually what you want? Or is it just a script? A script society just keeps repeating over and over until it feels inevitable. We get constantly bombarded with these heavy expectations about marriage, our careers, starting a family. But as these stories are going to show us, stepping off that pre-written script doesn't mean your life is somehow broken or incomplete. And that brings us to the core philosophical question of this whole explainer. The stories we're unpacking today, they don't try to preach that marriage is a requirement, and they definitely don't claim that being single is some endless parade of liberation. Instead, they present this really tough, totally neutral reality. Is there any adult path that doesn't require giving something up? The real question we're tackling here isn't just about finding freedom. It's about figuring out what you are actually willing to become responsible for.
All right, let's get into our first case study. Story 1, The Two Mugs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer compounding weight of tiny negotiations in a long marriage. Meet Daniel. He's a 58-year-old history teacher, married to his wife Laura for 31 years. After grabbing coffee with a single buddy who just spent his entire summer spontaneously backpacking through Europe, Daniel suddenly starts questioning his completely predictable routine. Notice how he didn't just make one massive sacrifice up front. It was literally 1,000 micro-decisions. At 32, he passed on a dream job in Colorado just to stay close to his mother-in-law. A few years later, he turned down a high-paying startup gig in North Carolina. For 31 years, his life was completely shaped by doors he chose to close. And he really starts to wonder, did commitment just make my world smaller? When Daniel initially compares his life to his single colleagues, he feels this intense, gut-wrenching envy of that infinite freedom, all those wide-open doors. But then he actually looks around his own house. He sees the little pencil marks on the wall where they measured the kids growing up, the beat-up kitchen table where they weathered literal decades of life's storms together, and he has this profound realization. Those closed doors, they weren't just lost opportunities. Closing those doors is exactly how he managed to build the deeply meaningful room of his family life. Look at this quote, because it completely hits the nail on the head. What if sometimes closing a door was how you built a room? Wow. Choosing one specific path means stepping up and taking responsibility for it, rather than just constantly mourning all those alternate universes where you made different choices. Yes, his marriage absolutely cost him a ton of wild possibilities, but it created an unbelievable amount of depth in return. Which brings us right to our second character study. Story 2, The Room He Never Used. So, Evan is a 52-year-old, highly successful single architect. And Evan has spent his entire life avoiding permanent commitments. He just hated the idea of being trapped, right? He's lived in the exact same house for 15 years, and there's a second bedroom in it that he literally only uses for storing junk. But one day, he's digging around and unearths the original architectural floor plan from when he first built the place. And right there, next to that second bedroom, he had penciled in 2 little words, maybe nursery. It's this heartbreaking symbol of the family life he never officially rejected, but just constantly delayed. He kept telling his partners, not yet, basically assuming time was just going to wait around for him. But everything changes for Evan when his brother tragically and suddenly passes away. Standing there at the funeral, Evan is watching his brother's family, the shared grief, the tears, the incredibly deep, messy, beautiful connections holding them all together, and he feels a massive pang of envy. It hits him like a ton of bricks that keeping his options infinitely open didn't actually freeze time. Postponing a decision indefinitely, well, that ultimately became a binding, ironclad decision of its own, the decision to end up alone. And this brilliantly illustrates Evan's ultimate epiphany. As an architect, he finally, truly understands what his own buildings have been trying to teach him for decades. A room, just like a human life, only becomes truly useful after you make a firm decision about what it is actually for. Relationships aren't magic. They require deliberate, committed, sometimes difficult choices to function. You have to build them. And that flows perfectly into our third story. Story 3, Table for 12.
Meet Marianne. She's a 61-year-old unmarried, retired pediatric nurse, and her life completely shreds this tired old assumption that being single automatically means being lonely, or that you absolutely need a spouse and kids to have a quote-unquote real family. Just look at this number, 14. That is exactly how many people are crowded around Marianne's table on Thanksgiving Day. We're talking relatives, former coworkers, a few neighbors, even an international student. Marianne is living proof that family isn't just handed out by blood or a marriage license. But here's the catch. It also doesn't just happen by magic.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because Marianne uses some very deliberate architecture to cultivate this massive chosen family. She doesn't just wait around, she actively invites people in. She shows up at the hospital when they're hurt. She makes the tough phone calls. She literally makes room in her life for them. Whenever someone asks her, hey, who's going to take care of you when you get older? She already knows the answer. Her safety net is entirely built on years and years of these exact, intentional, daily actions.
Marianne sums it up perfectly right here. Tables don't fill themselves. Whether you are happily married or happily single, belonging is never a default state of being. It's an environment you have to actively, continuously construct with your own two hands. Her life is wonderfully, overwhelmingly full, not because she just blindly followed some standard societal script, but because she actually rolled up her sleeves and did the hard work of making room for other people. Which brings us to our final section today, discovering the rest. So the crucial point is that these stories are giving us this incredibly rich, totally nuanced view of adulthood, and they aren't taking any sides. Because the truth is, no path exists without sacrifice. None of them. Marriage closes a whole bunch of doors, yes, but it creates profound depth. Being single offers incredible freedom, but it means you're fully on the hook to deliberately build your own community. Waiting around for the perfect time to make a choice, that's just a decision to let time decide for you. Ultimately, true belonging requires architecture. Adulthood is really just about looking at the options, choosing which sacrifices you're personally willing to make, and deciding what you're ready to be responsible for. Now, we only had the time to cover the first 3 stories today, but trust me, there is a lot more to this anthology. To read the final 2 stories, which dive into a young married couple dealing with the intense financial and emotional realities of parenthood, and another woman fiercely trying to balance her deep independence with a brand new relationship, you definitely need to read the full source text. I highly encourage you to go to imaginarytalks.com/convenience-store-woman American Stories, Marriage, Freedom to explore the rest of these fantastic, thought-provoking narratives. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own life right now. Which possibilities are you actually willing to close in order to finally build your room? Because freedom isn't always about keeping every single door propped open forever. Sometimes real freedom is about confidently walking through just one of them and deciding to stay. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Be sure to check out the rest of the stories at the link provided, and I will catch you all next time.